Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Rando Geek. Okay, I got the screenshot up for you. In today's video, I want to talk about Verizon, AT&T, and I'm going to bring T-Mobile into this discussion too because it's relative to them as well. We're talking about layoffs between Verizon and AT&T. Mostly, they're the subject here because they're the main focus of this subject because they're the ones that have been doing a amount of layoffs. Verizon just recently announced they're going to be laying off 4,800 employees with severance pay. So they will be given the opportunity to have some money when they leave, but ultimately they'll be on the unemployment line very soon. Now, the big problem with layoffs is some of these employees have been invested in the company for a very long time, sometimes decades, right? They've been basically put all their eggs in one basket, devoted to the company. They have all their knowledge and experience in that one position at that one company. And now they're going to find themselves in kind of a tight situation where they might have to learn some new trades. They may have to be willing to be open-minded and do something that they're not familiar with in order to make ends meet. And this is the way the world works, right? Unfortunately, when you work for an employer, there's no guarantees that you'll have a job tomorrow. If you're in some kind of union, you have a little bit of protection, but even then, you never know, right? So AT&T and Verizon, I think their overall critical mission is to downsize employees so that they can cut costs. This is something that they've been working on for quite some time now. We're being told that Verizon has under 100,000 they're saying, which is the first time since they basically launched. So they're laying off so many employees. They've laid off just about under 100,000 employees. So they're saying that their lead to a pre-tax write-off in the neighborhood of 1.9 billion that they'll take during the current third quarter. All right. So they're looking to save a lot of money by eliminating employees. There's a couple of things that they can do to get away with this. A lot of it is automation, right? They've figured out, they've invested a lot of money in automation. They figured out how to replace human beings with automation. Certain positions don't really need people. Now, AT&T has been doing this as well. They've been laying off a number of employees, and it looks like they're not stopping. We have a graph here that shows the headcount at AT&T and Verizon. So if we look at the years, okay, so we have basically 250,000 2017, 150,000 for Verizon, okay, so 250 for AT&T. Then we have, like I said, 150 for Verizon 2017. AT&T actually spiked up a little bit in 2018, about 275 or so, and Verizon down, so just under 150,000, maybe around 140, 130,000. And then as we can see, AT&T back down in 2019, Verizon going further down, AT&T down in 2020, Verizon down just a little bit in 2020, significantly down in 2021, AT&T also significantly down. As we can see the trends here, it just keeps going. And we're looking at Verizon in 2024. I mean, they're basically at this point almost an all automated company. They barely have any staff. Now, what is the issue with this? Well, the issue here is, so looking at it from a business perspective, if they can figure out how to get the job done without having employees, without having to pay benefits and salaries and, bonuses, which, also eat up a lot of profit, why wouldn't they do it, right? They've been so far able to manage it. Some of these positions, I guess they're not that important that we probably haven't even really noticed a difference. Certain positions like customer service, of course, it's very important. You have to have real people in a seat that can listen to your problems and try to work with you strategically to solve any issues. Having that automated can be very difficult. Just like you ever go to a chat bot and it's a chat GPT and, sometimes automation's just not there yet. It's not ready, right? It's not ready for all the questions that we have. It doesn't know every answer. There are certain things that it's been able to accomplish and satisfy customer needs, but not to an extent that when you have an irate customer who's very emotional, you need a real person, whether they really care or not. We know that they don't, and sometimes they're not sincere, and sometimes they actually make you feel worse with their tone. If it's a poor tone and they're not willing to help, sometimes that can aggravate you more. But what's even more frustrating is if you're like arguing with a robot that really doesn't understand, right? So you have to have people in customer service positions. Now, when we really break this down, what kind of future are we looking at, right? What kind of future are we looking at when we see companies like AT&T and Verizon cost cutting to a point where there'll be very little to none human contact? We're going to notice a shift in performance. At some point, we're going to start to notice things aren't what we need. T-Mobile is into this discussion as well because they've also been laying off employees. It hasn't been as obvious. They're more in the ballpark of merging with other companies and laying off those additional employees that were taken on through the mergers, like they did with Sprint, like they're going to do with Mint Mobile and Ultra Mobile. Those employees, their days are numbered. T-Mobile's not keeping them. There's not a need for all of those positions. And unfortunately, that is part of the problem with the mergers. I've mentioned in previous videos that the FCC would need to, if they want to continue to allow the mergers, that's fine, but they need to have some kind of protective rights for employees. If you're an employee who's been working for a company and your job is at the very least satisfactory, you shouldn't have to worry about another company coming in and taking over. These aren't small mom and pop companies. These are well-known public companies that are traded on. Okay, investors put money into these companies, so they have to play by different rules. Small companies that aren't public, they can kind of do whatever they want. The doors are closed. Nobody really knows how the business is operated. But when you're a publicly traded company like Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile, there needs to be certain rules that you follow. And there are. But we're not really feeling like they are following those rules, right? That's the thing. The rules are there, but there are certain rules that are not being followed, and there are certain rules that should be requested that they follow. Something like I said, where employees need to have more rights. If T-Mobile wants to buy multiple companies, they need to make sure that these employees have a job. Either those positions need to be kept or new positions need to be offered, extended to them. Same pay, because you're the one that took over the company. You didn't need to buy that company. You chose to buy it to benefit yourself and supposedly make service better. But at the same time, I think you get what I'm saying. Employees need to have better rights with these mergers. So I think that's something the FCC needs to do. So I think we'll see a downtrend. Verizon will certainly continue to lay off. AT&T as well. We know AT&T has been tightening the belt as much as they can, all in on fiber. Verizon figured out a way to eliminate a lot of staff, have a lot of things automated, and cut costs that way. There was a lot of positions that were no longer needed, and I get it. I do. But I think with automation taking over, I think things are going to be different, and not necessarily in a good way. I think at some point the FCC will need to step in and kind of regulate this whole thing. It's a very head-scratchy type of subject. I'm basically just kind of addressing this to you guys, updating you on what's going on. I think we'll start to hear more about this, a lot more about this, and I think T-Mobile is next, for sure. I think T-Mobile We're going to hear a lot about layoffs from T-Mobile, from the Mint side, the Ultra Mobile side, probably even within maybe even Metro. Um, how many acquisitions has T-Mobile taken over now, right? They have so much on their plate. Do they really need all of these employees? What do they need the staff from Ultra Mobile for? Right? What do they need the staff from Mint Mobile for? They just need the service, right? They just need the service. There's very little employees that are needed. They'll figure out a way to manage it, just like Verizon's been doing, just like AT&T has been doing. But ultimately, this could be affecting performance within the company, stretching, the very few employees that you have to unreasonable amounts, right? I mean, these are people, these are not rubber bands. You can't pull on them and just expect them to not break, right? When you put too much pressure on your employees, it leaks out in performance. Ultimately, the customer is the one that will suffer. The company will bounce back. They can always find another person to replace, the ones not being productive. But the customers, these are the ones that will lose out. These are the ones that will have to overpay when there's incorrect charges placed because the employee is doing too much and they're not paying attention. These are the ones that will suffer. So that's all I have for you here. Just a bit of a discussion. You can comment down below your thoughts on this process, the whole thing here. And if any of you work for either of these companies, what's the current experience? What's the vibe? What's going on? You don't have to give any, don't get too personal. Just enough that we understand what's really going on and how people are really feeling, because I'm sure it's not good, unfortunately. As always, thank you guys so much for stopping by and watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.